Don't sit down. If you would all raise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. We have a few more people here in line that's checking in. That's fine. We can proceed as they do that. I'm going to go through procedures as we do each year. They haven't changed. I will recognize someone on each warrant article to make a motion, accept a second, and then we'll have discussion on it. When we're done with discussion, it will move forward to the ballot as it is unless someone presents an amendment, in which case we will discuss the amendment, vote on it, and then proceed. I'm going to ask you all, I think you've all been here, I'm going to ask you all to remember that you are addressing me, and I will disperse the questions as we need to. I will ask you to remember that you may have people in the audience who have different opinions than you do, and I'm going to ask that you be polite and respectful of those opinions. And we'll proceed as this. If you have discussion on any items, I'm going to restrict you to 3 minutes. If you have more information that you want to present, you can go back, get to the end of the line, and come up again. And we'll go forward with that. So, with that being said, I'm going to recognize Chris Ortega to introduce his fellow members of the board.
Okay. To my far right, we have the district's legal counsel, Attorney Kathy Peel. To my immediate right, we have the Superintendent of Schools, Superintendent Chaffrey. To my immediate left is Vice Chair Shannon Barnes. To her left is Board Member Davis Powell. To his left is Board Member Andy Schneider. And at the far left is Board Member Cinda Gwal-Yumi. Behind me, at the your far left is School District Clerk Pat Heinrich. In the middle is Business Administrator Matt Chevenel. And to the far left is Assistant Superintendent Dr. Mark McLaughlin.
Thank you. We're going to proceed. Article 1 is obviously the election of officials, which will occur next month. We're going to proceed with Article 2, relative to gift and legacies and devices. And I'm going to recognize Shannon to make a motion.
I move that we accept Article 2 as printed.
Thank you. And a second? Thank you, Andy. Shannon, you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This article appears on our ballot every year, and it allows the school district to accept property on behalf of the district. If the article wasn't approved, all non-cash donations would have to come before the voters. So this does not negate public discussion by the school board, and it would still require a vote of the board to accept.
Thank you. Any questions? Any issues with this? Seeing none, the article will move forward as printed to the ballot. Article number 3, relative to the Merrimack Teachers Association Collective Bargaining Agreement. Andy?
I move that we accept the Article 3 as written.
Thank you. And a second? Davis, thank you. Andy, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Moderator. This is the article representing a negotiated 3-year agreement between the Merrimack School Board and the Merrimack Teachers Association. As you can see written on the warrant article, there are 3 years of estimated amount cost incremental, reflecting what's contained in this, $750,714 in year 2016-17, $742,335 on years 17-18, and 2018 and 19, the number is $764,605. This contract, just so you know, was really derived upon trying to do a couple of things. One, to remain competitive with surrounding districts in terms of teacher salary. So the 3% increase that we've we negotiated for each 3 years allows us to remain competitive. We are certainly not leading by any stretch, but we're also not the bottom. We're in mid-pack. And as a result, the salary table that was also created reflects providing money towards new teachers, attracting them to the district, as well as enforcing the district's goal of academic attainment by putting additional dollars in the Masters and Masters Plus columns in the table. So we've tried to enforce our stance on the increase along with the table placement. Additionally, one of the areas that we also focused on was around health insurance. The contribution rate in this current year we're sitting in is 85-15 for the teachers, which is 85 for the district, 15 for the employee, and that's based off the HMO plan. If the teachers choose, there's an additional plan. There's a Blue Cross tier where the percentage drops to 78% for the district and increases to 22% for the employee. One of the things and we've kept it neutral at that contribution level for the duration of the contract, but one of the things we also negotiated in was the ability to add additional plans into the contract, and specific ones that will be more attractive to, more site of service type of plans. They're more attractive to younger teachers, which may want to have a lower cost to them, but it's also much lower cost to the district. So we tried to do this contract around health care so that our long-term expense was something that we can control, and starting with the second year of the contract and moving forward, we can offer these additional plans as options to help save district and employees money on health care. Other things that we've done is that we've slightly increased the opt-out plan to encourage more teachers to opt out, so it reduces costs to the district. And we've also added dollars into the professional development, specifically in the area of teachers increasing their academic attainment towards master's degrees, so we can move teachers off of bachelor's and into the master's program. So that's the summary of what the contract is.
Any further discussion, questions? Mike?
Thank you. Michael Thompson, 99 Joppa Road. I got a question in regards to the opt-out plan. As stated, it's moving from $1,500 to $3,000, and it's multiple questions that I have. I was wondering if you know how many are currently taking advantage of the $1,500 opt-out. Additionally, what are the savings per individual if they were to choose the $3,000 plan going or opt-out moving forward? And also, if there are any pre-requirements in order to actually take advantage of that, meaning that if they have to be on the plan for so many years prior to, and not be able to just jump on for 1 year and then jump off for the $3,000.
Andy?
So what we know is that there's approximately 45 teachers that are currently taking the opt-out today. So the number would, if that same number chose to opt out next year, the number would go from 1,500 to 3,000 for each one of them. However, there's no restriction that says that they can't change, like next year decide to take the medical plan and the year after that opt. It's an open enrollment every year. So the teachers do have the ability to come in and out. What we can't forecast and what we didn't forecast in the spend was how many additional teachers might choose to opt out in the next year, and also how many teachers would potentially choose to take health care and not do this, because it does fluctuate based on individuals' choices, just like in industry. The last thing you asked is we anticipate, and I'll ask Business Director Chevenel to confirm, is that even if by increasing from $1,500 to $3,000, it still saves at least $2,000 to $3,000 per employee should they do that opt-out versus them taking health care. So that's sort of the logic behind why we did this. I hope it answered the questions that you had.
Just a clarification. So there are no pre-requirements of how long they have to be on a plan in order to get the opt-out? They can come on for one and then
I
get
don't
the
believe
opt-out.
so. Matt, can you just confirm?
Yeah, there's no, you don't have to be on the plan or with the district, as a matter of fact, for any predetermined time. You can come in and say you want to opt out as a brand new employee, and then you get the now $3,000. Now, when you get that $3,000, what we're hoping to do is incentivize maybe 4, 5, 6 people, because if you do that, then the district saves around $17,000 on a family plan, $13,000 on a two-person, and they save around $5,000 a year on a single. So hopefully that'll happen. This will pay for itself and it'll actually make money for us in the long run. That's the thought behind it.
Understand. Thank you very much.
Jody? You going to defer to Jack?
She said age before beauty.
I'm not going there.
Okay. Jack Balcom, 85 Pondview Drive. Just one question, and that's, can you tell me what the average increase is? This affects us at the state level. Don't make us look too bad. What's the,
Stand by.
okay.
Matt, do you know off the top of your head what the average?
Yeah, the average raise increase per year is 3%.
3%.
It's on a sliding scale. Those at the bottom of the scale get a little bit more, so it's around 4.5%, and those at the top of the scale top out at around maybe 2 to 1.5% as you get up there in years of service.
Okay, follow-up question?
Sir?
When I was on the school board, we had a lot of trouble with some of the steps in the middle where we would train a teacher up to 6 years and they'd be really good, and then all of a sudden the steps weren't competitive. Are we competitive throughout our whole steps now?
Yeah, I know if I could just finish that one off. I know the period in time you were talking about, because I was here during that period. You got to like year 4, year 5, and all of a sudden you were faced with like a 1% raise or a 1.5%, 2%. So you take all this time training these teachers, getting them involved in your system, and then they'd be looking at a drought as far as their pay increases. That's been taken care of in the salary chart right now.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Jody.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jody Valancourt, 35 Greenleaf Street. I have a question similar to Mr. Thompson's. When we talk about incentivizing the members of the MTA to possibly change plans on year 2, is there any way to forecast how many members of the MTA might be willing to do that and the dollar amount that it could potentially save taxpayers if that were the case?
Crystal ball time.
There's no concrete way to do that and come up with anything credible that I would stand here and honestly tell you how many people would take it. In other districts, we've offered to non-union people. We have around 3 members now, but to say in year 2 how many that would be and what the savings would be, can't predict that. That's why we want the year of education, so we can promote the plan and tell everybody what it does for them and the advantages and disadvantages. But right now, it's impossible for me to say, from a numbers standpoint, what that savings would be in year 2.
Davis?
Thank you.
Grab the mic.
We do know that there is interest because we tried to offer this during open enrollment this year, and we had a grievance filed against us by the Teachers Association saying that we weren't allowed to offer it. However, many teachers were interested in it, and during negotiations, several have come up to say that they were interested. What that number is, as Matt said, there's no way to determine it, but there is interest out there.
Okay. And
Andy?
Yeah, and just to close that out, is that the other thing is that Board Member Gayumi and myself, I can never pronounce her name, we went to a healthcare summit this year also to research this before we even went down the road. And we found that other districts are finding that, especially the newer teachers coming in, are finding it much more attractive to do these more site of service plans because they don't have the health issues and it helps them to bring more dollars into their pocket. And districts are also finding it advantageous as well. So one of the benefits is not only the new plan that we're adding, but the ability to see how the healthcare system evolves over the next couple of years. And we have the ability to offer additional new plans over the life of the contract so that if something more creative, more cost-effective shows up, we have the ability to add that as well without needing approval of the teachers union. So,
thank you. I believe it would be accurate to say also that there's possibility that there would be no one that would take a new plan and there could potentially be no health care cost savings as a result of members taking the new plan either the first year, the second year, or the third year. So having said that, I don't begrudge teachers making a decent wage. I certainly don't begrudge teachers keeping up with the cost of living. However, for close to $750,000 for the first year, the second year, and the third year without any health care savings to the taxpayers. I cannot support this warrant article. There are a couple of very large capital projects contained in the operating budget which I do support, and it's absolutely necessary that those projects continue to move forward, and I'm going to support the operating budget because of that. So with that kind of money being spent on the capital projects, I just feel that adding this substantial increase along to the tax rate is too large a burden to bear for the taxpayers. So I'm not in support of this warrant article. Thank you.
Anyone else? Tim?
Tim Tenhave, 72 Amherst Road. Do the costs that we see in the warrant article reflect the retirement expenses that go along with those raises?
Yeah.
Andy?
Yes.
Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to defer to Matt, but the answer is yes. It's a fully loaded amount, including all the taxes and retirement and all the other associated costs.
All right, so what is the school board
Tim,
doing?
would you raise the mic, please? Thank you.
So what is the school board doing about the retirement expenses that the district incurs? And are you working with any other school boards or associations in order to try and control retirement costs?
Davis?
Just to clarify, when you say retirement expenses, what exactly are you referring to?
Well, so you have to contribute to the New Hampshire Retirement.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought that's what you meant,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that there was no confusion that we offer pensions as a district alone or not. Our legislative representatives are coming before us in the next meeting or two, and this will be one of the things that I plan on addressing with them, is to make sure that we do reel in those costs. As far as working with other districts, as I'm sure you know, we are a member of CERESC, which is the southeastern area, and our administrators and business administrator is constantly talking with his counterparts in those areas. Really, our hands are tied. It's the legislative body that is the one that has the control over that, and we really can't do anything at a local level.
So I understand the hands tied. I understand the legislative portion, but I also understand that we can advocate much stronger for reforms in that area.
Absolutely.
And that I would love to see this board or the next instantiation of it take that and run with it stronger and harder in a visible manner. And maybe some of the other districts will fall in line, and let's get somewhere. Let's have some real reform. So
I agree with you 100%, but it also comes from the voters that need to say that same message to their legislators as well.
I'm hoping that the town and the district will come in behind you and support you on that. So
Thanks, Tim.
So may I ask another?
Certainly.
So the raises that are in here, are they automatic? If you are a teacher that is performing well enough to stay employed, or an average teacher or an extraordinary teacher, would you see the same raise if you're in the same step as any of those other teachers that I just described?
Andy?
So, obviously, the way that the table is set and the steps are that it's based on seniority. So to answer your question, if you had 3 teachers that were at the same step, all performing at different levels, their salary the following year would essentially be the same. They'd receive the same increase. However, the district, as you know, over the last year has put in a teacher evaluation program that we're just starting off, and what we as a board, at least the current board, are looking at the success of that program over the next 3 years. We did not take that into account in any impact of salary with evaluations during this contract term. But one of the things that this board is looking at is how successful the teacher evaluation process is to decide in the future whether that could be a factor as far as that.
So what constitutes success?
There's a whole, if we're talking about the teacher evaluation, there's a whole rubric and a set of processes that's in place to analyze a teacher in terms of highly effective, needs improvement, and there's a whole I don't know if there's a document or white paper that describes.
Let me
those steps.
rephrase my question then. So you've described a program that's going to do an analysis and an evaluation. Success would be that you have a clear understanding of the aptitude or capability of all your teachers, or success indicates that maybe you need to start a different type of program? That's kind of what I'm asking for.
Well,
Is it not known?
I don't know. Davis, do you want to respond at all to this, to the evaluation program?
I think I would rather defer to the superintendent, who is the one that's responsible for the implementation of it.
So I won't hold everyone up here, but really what I'm driving at is I would like to find a way and have the district encourage better performance or pay for performance, which is very common in the private sector and something that I don't see happening here. And I think it would be worthwhile to our students, our children, our grandchildren, which I have in this district, to see that kind of a program in place.
And I believe
That comment I can address. This is the first step in hopes of going towards that. Mm-hmm. The program needs to be in place for some time, however, to evaluate it, to tweak it, to make sure. But that is one of the ultimate goals that is being looked at.
Okay. All right. So that gets back to my success comment. So good.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Absolutely.
Anyone else want to speak to Article 3, the contracts that are being discussed? Stan?
I'm just waiting for you to say you got to be moving on.
Davis?
I just wanted to address Mrs. Valancourt's comment. Excuse me. While I understand her concern over the lack of movement, if you will, on the contribution towards medical care costs, I have to disagree with her in that there's a possibility that no one will take advantage of the new site of service plans. As I said, there was overwhelming interest during open enrollment this past time period, so I know that people will be signing up for it. It's a matter of getting the information out as to how many people are going to sign up for it. Thank you.
All set, Stan?
I move we restrict reconsideration of this warrant article.
Is there any further discussion on this warrant article? Seeing none, the article will move forward to the ballot as printed, and I'll accept the motion for reconsideration restriction. A second? Thank you. We're going on to Article 4. No, you don't vote on that. I'm sorry, yes you do. All those in... Sorry, it's been a long night. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration? All those opposed? We're restricting reconsideration. Thank you. Article 4. Shall the district call one special meeting? Davis?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for you to read it.
Are you going to make a motion?
I move that we
As
accept
printed?
this article as written. I'm sorry. You threw me off my game.
Sorry about that. So moved as printed. Second? I second. Thank you, Cinda. Davis, you want to speak to this?
Sure. This article gives the school board the option of calling one special meeting to discuss cost items only in the negotiated agreement in the event it's not passed by the voters during the election next month. If we didn't have this article on the warrant, we would have to petition the Superior Court in order to get approval to have a special meeting. The court grants only such special meetings for emergency purposes.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 4 as printed? Seeing none, it'll move forward to the ballot. Article 5, relative to repair capital reserve fund. Cinda?
I move that we accept Article 5 as written.
Thank you. Shannon, second. Thank you. Cindy, you want to speak to this?
Yes, Madam Moderator, thank you. The article funds the existing capital reserve account for general, unforeseen, and therefore unbudgeted repairs to the district facilities and equipment. During the last school year, in 2014 and 2015, the fund was used to replace one section of the high school bleachers, and that was in the amount of $98,500. The fund currently has a balance of $77,000. This article will bring the total available for emergencies to approximately $152,000, which could be used for something like a boiler failure, non-functioning fire alarm panels, computer servers, and equipment that are essential. And these are just a few examples of the potential expenditures that do not always coincide with the existing budget process. Any expenditures from this fund do ultimately require a majority vote from the school board.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Article 5 will move forward as printed. Article 6, relative, and I'm going to, at the request of a constituent, shall a district vote pursuant to RSA 35:9-A to authorize the trustee of trust funds to charge any contractual management expenses incurred for the management of any district capital reserve funds for which the trustees have been granted custody pursuant to RSA 35:2 against the capital reserve funds involved, rather than paying such expenses from the district general funds. Such authority shall remain in effect until rescinded by vote of the district, which shall not occur within 5 years from the date of this original authorization. Chris?
I move Article 6.
Second? Thank you, Jack. You want to speak to this?
Just briefly, this carries forward a process that the trustees have been using for several years, which is paying management fees or banking fees out of the income on capital reserve funds. In some towns, instead of paying out of the income, they've been carrying a line item in the general fund or in the operating budget to pay those fees. That's pretty cumbersome with a lot of back and forth billing and writing checks and so forth. So essentially, we go for the net income. As you mentioned, once approved, this can be rescinded, but you can't bring it back for 5 years. So that's not a big problem, but it's kind of an arbitrary number that went into the bill. And we're doing this because there was a new bill passed recently by the legislature that requires us to do this. Historically, management fees for things like the public deposit investment pool or mutual funds were addressed, but bank fees were not. So they're just bringing that to make everything match. For those who are curious, we pay currently 25 basis points or 1/4%, and for the school district, that amounts to about $1,800 a year, depending upon how much money is in the capital reserve funds on behalf of the school. And the town council, just for comparison, has already approved this, so we're looking forward to doing it here, so everybody will follow the same track, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any further discussion on Article 7? I'm sorry, Article 6. Seeing none, it'll move forward to the ballot as printed. Stan, before I recognize you for a motion, I would like to have you introduce your budget committee and then make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I'm Stan Heinrich. I'm the chairman of the School Budget Committee. And our members this year include Kevin Bobbitt, Bill Cummins, who is the current vice chair, Jordan Guglielmi, John Hanson, David Ilg, Shelley Jacoby, Carol Lang, Lisa Mooney, Chuck Mower, and Caitlin Ortega. And Davis Powell is the liaison from the school board with Cinda as the alternate. I would also like to recognize Lisa Mooney for her 4 years' service on the Budget Committee and thank her. And I would also like to give a big thank you to Mr. Bill Cummings for 9 years of service on the Budget Committee. He has served as Vice Chairman and Chairman. Thank you. Madam Moderator, I move that we recommend and approve $72,283,299 for an operating budget for for the forthcoming year.
Thank you, Bill. So you're moving the article as printed?
That's correct.
Thank you.
You notice the budget is up from last year. And what I would like to point out a few things on the budget, so please bear with me. There are a number of capital items that are in the operating budget which caused the increase. And those capital items include $1.13 million to replace the complete roof at the Merrimack Middle School. Originally, it was put in to do only 3/4 of the roof, but because of the prices of petroleum going way down, Mr. Chauvinel asked for bids that would also include the complete roof at one time, and the bid came in at what we had budgeted for to just do 3/4. So that is saving $1.3 million next year, and they're going to be able to do the whole roof at once. It also includes $515,000 for the 40-plus-year-old HVAC unit that is on top of Merrimack High School that is rusting out from the inside. After they had just put on a new roof on the high school in certain sections, they started having water coming through the ceiling, and they were getting concerned. And when they went upstairs on the roof to find out what the problem was, they found that the drainage holes in the HVAC unit were rusting out from the inside. This unit has been welded, repaired, parts replaced. It has no parts available anymore. And when you're having a meeting in the cafeteria, if it doesn't shut off at 7 o'clock, you can't hear yourself think. Again, it's another necessary expense, and that's why it is put in the operating budget. Another item in the operating budget is a new track for the high school. The current track is no longer usable after this spring. We have been informed by the people that repair the track they can no longer service it because it's worn out and it's falling apart and it's unsafe. And if we do not replace this track, the children of the track team and people who like to walk the track for exercise will not be able to use it. There was considerable discussion about why not build a track and put a turf field in at the same time. Well, a turf field is another $1.5 million, and that really wasn't needed at this time. The natural grass field is working fine, and what has been done is that when they put the track in, they're going to have the drainage for any field upgrades put in at that time, and they'll be able to go over the track with heavy equipment with a special bridge that they use so that the track does not get degraded. It also includes adding 2 lanes on the 100-meter straightaway, and by doing that, they have to put in a small retaining wall. If they do not add the 2 lanes in, they cannot host any state track meets, as you can in a lot of other schools in the district that bring in people to the town. They spend money. We reap those benefits. Those total items for capital expenses come to $2,084,750. One of the things that is not in the budget, a capital expense that is going to be dealt with next year, is paving at the high school for $227,000. It was decided to postpone that till next year to come up with an even more comprehensive plan for paving to do a complete job around the high school and down on Garrett Drive. And just for information's sake, if we did not have these capital items in our operating budget, the budget would only be $70,198,549, which is less than this current year's budget that we are now in. And I would also just remind our voting establishment that last year you approved the budget for the school district, the operating budget, with 79+% of the people voting in favor. And we urge you to approve this operating budget. The Budget Committee was unanimous in its recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
I was just making sure you got a second on his motion before.
Of course.
Sorry.
Any further discussion on the budget? Tim?
Tim, 10 Hague, 72 Amherst Road. Just to complete the numbers, what was the number on the new track?
430,000.
Okay. So this year is an unusual year in the fact that the default budget is lower than the proposed budget. What happens if the default budget wins?
Chris?
Sure. If the default budget passes, or actually, let me put it the other way, if this warrant article does not pass, the board would be forced to work under the default budget and make decisions in terms of what gets spent and what does not.
So does anything come off the table automatically?
No.
Okay. Special warrant articles are used so that way you have to spend the money on the item that the article represents, and if the money's not spent, the money goes back to the taxpayers. Why wasn't special warrant articles used for these large capital items that appear in your budget?
Shannon?
Honestly, when you come to things like the, and I can go through them line by line, we can start with the roofing, and that's infrastructure, and it is not sealed, so we are looking at the possibility of damaging our assets, which is the building of the middle school. So that's not something that we would put out to a warrant article, because at this point, our assets are something that we are responsible for maintaining. So the roof is not viable at this point. It was not even on this budget. I'm sorry, let me just recap. It was not on the capital improvement plan for this year. We did not expect to budget this for another 3 years. Circumstances require us to respond to the middle school roof, because at the 10-year anniversary in 15 minutes, I say sarcastically all the time, the warranty is out and the roof is no longer viable. Has to be done. And we'll go to the HVAC unit, which Stan, I think, really comprehensively covered. It's rusting from the inside out. It's not going to last. It is not serviceable. It is not repairable. So that's not something that we can put out and say that we're not going to have ventilation in the high school cafeteria. Replacement of the track is the third, and I think that's the one you were targeting with your question. I wanted to go through all of them.
No, I was interested in all of them.
You asked the amount,
Tim?
which is why I thought.
Yeah.
You'll get a chance.
So
Let Shannon finish.
Since you're asking the amount, I thought that was your goal, your focus of the question. Now, the replacement of the track is, and I apologize if I assume too much. The replacement of the track is $430,000. It is a safety issue. We are not, as a board, comfortable with putting out to vote safety of our students, and honestly the community that also uses it. Are we getting a track that's going to be comprehensive and competitive? Yes, we are, but we would have no track viable whatsoever. The company that we have used to patch this track over and over again said they are no longer coming back. The track would be closed. So that being said, our students would no longer have the resources to have the track programs that we do. Those track programs, I think, not only help the sports programs that we have, I think it helps the student athletes with opportunities that they wouldn't have without using their talents in track and field for potential colleges. They wouldn't be able to host meets, so they wouldn't be able to train effectively. So there was all of that. But the track is something that, as you will see on a normal day, is used by the community at large as well. Just like a lot of our assets, the assets are, just like tonight, are used for community events. So that's something that we would no longer be able to afford our community the opportunity to do that. As we're, a school district that focuses on health and wellness, not having something as essential and core as a track, which is an accessible asset for almost every student, that's not doing our students a service. Gym classes, and it comes out of gym classes as well, but sports gym classes, and again, the community asset as well. So that's not something that we felt that we could keep an unsafe asset that's accessible to students in the community without addressing it. So we put it in our operating budget.
Andy?
I think to more directly answer your question, if we put each of these things individually into warrant articles and they were voted down, we as a board could not spend the money from the operating budget to do that task. Build a new track, replace the HVAC unit, or replace the roof, because of the state no means no scenario. So that's why we as a board chose to put it in the operating budget, because we felt all three were critical to the day-to-day function of the district.
Well, I'm glad to hear your answers, but I'm disappointed that you didn't trust the members of the district to do what's right for the students, which are their children. It would have been fortunate to have done it the way you did it, the way I suggest in my question, because that allows us to affirm your trust in us. I mean, our trust in you and your trust in us, actually. So just a comment while I have the mic. How much money was returned in surplus at the end of the last 3 years?
Matt?
I'll take that one. Because of the unanticipated $1 million health trust reimbursements over the last 3 years, which you can't anticipate because they don't tell you you're going to be getting them until the check shows up on your door. Over the last 3 years, last year, surplus was $4.4 million. The year before was 4.8. The year before was 1.9. And the year before, 2012, 2013, was 1.5. And you can see the last few years has been higher than normal, primarily because of the $1 million to $1.5 million of unanticipated revenue that we could not foresee coming from the health trust reimbursements.
So if we follow on course and we have even the lowest year that you mentioned, if the default budget was the budget that was enacted by the voters, you should still be able to do pretty much everything you want to do. You'd just be a little bit tighter at the end. True?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Jody?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jody Valancourt, 35 Greenleaf Street. I just have a couple of comments regarding this warrant article. I think what Mr. Tenhave has asked is a very good question, and from my tenure on the school board, I can tell you it was a philosophical discussion that was had every year. It was had by the school board and it was had by the budget committee too. Large capital projects, should we put them on the ballot as a separate warrant article, or should those costs be contained in the operating budget? I happen to disagree with Mr. Tenhave, and I support the board's decision to put those items in the operating budget. And I personally don't look at it as the board doesn't trust the voters in town to do what's right. I personally, and I'm only speaking for myself, when I sat on the school board, I took it as it was my budget, I was responsible for it, and I believe that in years past, budgets were artificially deflated with things that were absolutely necessary that were put on as separate warrant articles, and then there was all kinds of political lobbying to support those, but those particular school boards could say, look how low our operating budget is. So I think it's a philosophical question, and I think it's a matter of opinion. So I personally support what the school board has done. There are things in the operating budget that I wish we could vote on and not support, but that's not how it works unless we wanted to take money off here. I understand his question about voting this down and having the default budget come into play. And, you know, that's always a possibility, absolutely. But I caution people, when you think that the school board has a lot of extra money, the roof is leaking, it has to be repaired. That HVAC system has to be repaired. The fact that the middle school roof needs to be repaired replaced after only 10 years, I think everyone in town should question that and be upset about it, but there's really not anything we can do to change that circumstance. So the track is an issue where a lot of people have said that's a capital improvement, that's making the building better. It's a necessity. It is a safety issue. I personally will not gain anything by that track remaining in the operating budget. My son graduated last year. However, my son did participate in cross country in the fall, winter track in the winter, and spring track in the spring, all 4 years of high school. And there are hundreds and hundreds of students who many of their parents are sitting here with me tonight, who their child benefits so strongly from the running programs, the middle school as well. And last year, as students were running, parts of the track were coming up in their cleats. That's how bad it was. So possibly the school board administration could be accused of lack of proper planning. They weren't addressing the needs in the manner they should. But if this does not pass and that track does not get replaced, then it's going to be the students who will be suffering, not the adults. So I stand here in support of the operating budget. While there are some things I would like to pick and choose, the capital projects I believe are necessary and need to remain in there. And I'm going to be voting yes on this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Mike?
Thank you. Michael Thompson, 99 Joppa Road, again. Question in regards to the roof. When did the 10-year warranty start?
2004, when the building opened up.
With occupancy?
Yes.
Okay. And it's just discovered now that it's failed, or is it failed, or is it?
Well, we've been keeping an eye on it for the past 3 years. I think it's been on the CIP for at least the past 2 to 3. We've scheduled it out for 1920. But after the last, not this winter, obviously, this winter was like tropical, but the two prior, which absolutely brutal, where we had to have snow blowers and shovels and everything up on the roofs, on all of our roofs, it really kind of stretched the membrane of it to the point where it's splitting in areas where it shouldn't be splitting. So it just did not take the last 2 years well as far as weather goes.
And I just would ask the board that as they're looking at these expenses, they kind of think outside the box for some of the solutions that might be out there, maybe even solar for top of the roofs to offset the cost for the school and other items. So thank you.
Well, there's one, if I can go ahead, Andy. If I could say one thing.
Andy?
There's one good thing I want to say about the roof. This roof that we're going to put up right now has like a 40-year warranty. I will not be here when you replace that roof, okay? This is not the roof that should have gone on the building in the first place, because that kind of technology wasn't really available back then. But it's unfortunate that it does have to be replaced. It is out of warranty, and we did have 2 harsh winters. And that building was a design-build project. It was one that was built in a year. There were no good bid specifications for it. It was put together extremely well. There were certain areas that had to be value engineered. That roof was one of them, to make it under the cost point. So hence we are sitting here today talking about replacing a roof on a building that's 12 years old now, going to be 12 years old. It did what it was supposed to do. It got us to a point, and now we're going to fix it for good, and we're going to do it the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rosemary?
Hi, Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. Just getting to the roof, I was on the school board that we developed the plan for the new school and brought it forward, and I do take responsibility that the roof has failed after 12 years. It was a project where we just relied a lot on the experts for advice. Matt, thanks a lot for your explanation. It makes me feel better. But I do come here, Tim actually asked a lot of questions I was going to ask, but I do come here as an angry voter because I feel as though the school board is forcing the voters to approve the track that's within the budget because it's an emergency. We're kind of painted into this corner that if we don't approve the track or the budget to get the track fixed, that all these students are going to be without a program. When you've said tonight that years and years we've been repairing it, and it's only this year now it's an emergency, I wish we had given more thought into developing more of a comprehensive plan for that area, because it's not the track that's been impacted. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also understand the high schools cut several teams because they're unable to use the field. Freshman football, freshman soccer. Is that true?
I don't know that.
Not to my knowledge.
No
Have we
answer
cut any
here.
freshman sports in Merrimack?
No, matter of fact, they've added some sports, some freshman sports over the last year. So
Okay.
the field hasn't really impacted.
So we still have freshman soccer. No other teams have been impacted by the condition of the sod?
Everybody's shaking heads one way or the other. Davis?
If I'm not mistaken, freshmen or the soccer teams don't even play on that field except for 1 or 2 games a season, so that really is irrelevant.
Okay. I'll just tell you, I've been in Merrimack since 1983. We have never had a warrant article pertaining to sports that's failed. This would have been a great opportunity to repair the track, make capital improvements to the track, which is being proposed, and also provide a turf field or make it so that long-term maintenance costs are dropped. We can add the additional lanes. I just really resent the fact that we're being forced to make a decision between kids and a track when this is a problem that's been known for a few years. It would have been a great warrant article. And like I said, Merrimack stands behind its kids and its sports. Like Tim said, I wish you would have trusted the voters more to do the right thing, because I think they would have, and we wouldn't be doing something piecemeal. We could look at the whole thing in its entirety and bring it before the voters. Another issue I have with the budget, which I've communicated to you through email, and I know, Chris, you haven't you haven't replied to me yet, but is, and Marge and Mark, this has nothing to do personally, but I'm really concerned with where our administrative salaries are now. When I looked at the budget and I saw that we're doubling professional development for administrators, when I look at comparable salaries of superintendents, assistant superintendents, we're the highest. We're higher than Manchester. We're higher than Nashua. I really would urge the board going forward to look at administrative compensation very strategically, very similar to the way a business would, that there may be a cap. If there's an administrator that wants more money, they'll have to go to a larger school district. We've been getting smaller. Our dropout rate is higher, and yet our administrative salaries and compensation is much higher relative to our teachers for the same region, and that really bothers me. I would also like to ask the school board to do more communication about administrative compensation. Just as we hear about all the details that are in the collective bargaining agreement, I think the taxpayers deserve to know and have some transparency when it comes to our administrative compensation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name is Kristen Carrillo. I live at 2 Great Stone Drive. I serve as president of the Merrimack Roadrunners Booster Club. This is a volunteer organization which supports all of our high school and middle school running programs, outdoor track, indoor track, and cross country. I'm also a mother of 4 children who attend the Merrimack school system. My daughter Bailey runs for Merrimack High School as a cross country runner, an indoor track runner, and an outdoor track runner. My house is surrounded by kids who run track, cross country. I see their faces every day. I see them work hard in their sport. I see them use track as a way to work through stress, and I see how important track and running is to them. Because I see that, I decided that I would serve as president of the Roadrunners Booster Club, not really knowing what I was getting into. But here I am, feeling very strongly, and my support is driven by many factors for this track. Merrimack is one of the very few Division I schools that has a track that's in such deplorable condition. Our neighbors in Hudson at this time, on the same date, are fighting for the same thing. Their track has been condemned, and they are being forced to travel to neighboring tracks for practices and meets. If Merrimack were to do this, that would require 4 buses, 5 days a week, $85 per bus, $2.53 per mile per bus, and $28 per hour for the bus driver to sit and wait for them to practice. If we do not have a track, we will be paying for that. And if we don't pay for that, we will not have a track team. We need a track to have a track team. We would never think to get rid of other programs here at Merrimack. In addition to our track athletes, the Roadrunners Booster Club, many community organizations, individual members of our community make use of the track. Each spring, for example, our Booster Club sponsors a Merrimack Invitational to raise money for all of our high school and middle school running programs. It is our second biggest fundraiser, and it's our biggest fundraiser of the track season. Without our track, we will be unable to host that meet. Without that meet, we will be unable to raise money for our kids to travel to weekend invitationals. We will be without money to give them for their banquets. And honestly, with all of that, our program is doomed. And the faces that you see behind me, something that they love, will be doomed. We owe it to them to support this operating budget. Additionally, with the new track, as was said before by Mr. Heinrich, we will be able to host the Division I outdoor state meet. And although this does have potential to raise money for the district and all the running programs, the most important thing it would do is to give our kids some pride in their school and their community. So I will be voting yes.
Ladies?
My name is Sarah House. I live at 34 Marty Drive. As a member of the MHS track team, I just like to speak to how important track has been to me personally. I have run track and cross country since 7th grade. And honestly, before I started running, I wasn't doing so well in school. I was hopelessly disorganized. I couldn't focus. My grades were slipping. I didn't have a lot of friends. When I got to middle school, I started running, and it would just open up this whole community to me. I had something that I was decently good at that I could feel good about. I had something that would help me focus and something positive to focus on, and most importantly, it was the community and finding people who I'm still friends with and have helped me through a lot. It's been a major part of my life throughout high school and probably will be for the rest of my life. And I really want my teammates and Merrimack kids in the future to have the same opportunities that I've had, because I think that it can do the same thing for other people. So I'll be voting yes on this article.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes.
My name's Erica Lane, and I live on 9 Esquire Lane. And I am a senior at Merrimack High School, and I have been running track for 6 years. And I remember the first day that I got off the bus, 7th grade, at the track, and it looked so huge to me, and it looked so, like, I felt so old, and just, I remember that day because it makes a difference when there's somewhere you go to run. And it became a home to me over the past 6 years. Like, it's where I would go. I go after school with friends. I go to practice. I go to work hard. And I think with track athletes especially, like, there's something about them that's not easily found. And it's kind of this, like, unwillingness to give up and to keep pushing, like, and I just think that, like, we don't get a lot of recognition as a team, I think. And that's okay. Like, we don't do it for the recognition, but, like, we deserve a place to practice, and we deserve a place to go and to become better. And without a track, we cannot be our best selves. Because what can we do if we have to practice on pavement or if we have to practice in a parking lot? And next year, I'll be gone, so you may be wondering why I'm up here. I'm here because the younger members of this team are not allowed to use their voices tonight, as they are not 18, which is interesting because, they're the ones that are going to be the most affected by this. So I'm here because they deserve to have the same home that I had for 6 years, and so do all the new 7th graders that will be getting off their buses in a year's time. They will have nowhere to go. And every year I watch other sports teams get their new equipment, new uniforms, things like that. I see people showing out to their games. And it just saddens me that this is, like, up for debate, that we wouldn't have a place when, we count as a team. And our track, it's full of cracks and holes, and I just don't think that that's okay to practice on, and we wouldn't be able to anymore. And I think that not approving this would only prove that this town, like, wouldn't value the track team as much as other teams, and I don't think that's right. And I think that we deserve somewhere to run, to practice, to laugh, to sweat, and to work hard that isn't a parking lot. And if you oppose the reconstruction, I ask you to practice hurdling on concrete, and I ask you to practice relay handoffs without any zone markings. And the simple answer is that you can't. We are a dedicated team, and I think that without a track, we cannot do what we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Last but not least,
as a point of privilege, Madam Moderator, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the youth of our community who have seen the investment that is necessary in their lives, what's necessary for our contemporary world, and what will propel them into the future as leaders and entrepreneurs and successful and complete people, and know that it happened here in Merrimack and that they had a voice in it. Voices are powerful. We seldom see enough participation. It's particularly satisfying to see it advocated from students who have a stake in all of this, and sometimes no vote. Congratulations to the students.
Thank you, Chuck.
Now, I am a sitting member of the Budget Committee. I've heard many people testify this evening that they are former school board members, which I am as well. And just so we don't lose count, I think we have a couple others back here that haven't yet been represented at the microphone. It almost sounds like a deliberative session of former school board members. Well, the one universal thing that we share as former school board members is that we've all had our hand on the tiller. They were different times, different circumstances, different legislative imperatives, all of those things. We live in a changing world. And what guided me as a school board member some number of years ago was, I think, correct and appropriate for its day. And I try very hard to get up every day and understand that I live in a very fast-changing world, and that I have to change in that same contemporary world. I'm grateful that I have representatives that have been duly voted and designated with the responsibility of making the very tough decisions about how to manage and administrate and regulate. We all have perhaps, some sublime feeling that perhaps we might have been able to be more knowledgeable or better or whatever, but the fact is that you are our school board. You have done a prudent thing in presenting this particular budget, and I fully support it.
Tim?
Tim, 10A, 72 Amherst Road. Question about the budget and revenue summary. Besides property taxes, are there any anticipated changes in revenue stream? I don't see any on the form, but I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Well,
Matt?
the MS-24, which is a revised version of the revenues, which gets done right before tax rate setting time.
In September or
in
October?
September, early October, which you usually have to wait until that time because that's when the Department of Ed gives you the latest numbers. And then they give you such a thing as the probability of success, meaning they'll give you a number for catastrophic aid, what you should get, but then they said, well, you could get 70% of that or you could get 90% of that. So it's up to you to pick the range. So you're kind of like sitting at the roulette wheel with the little red balls kind of throwing the things on the table. So these revenues, as stated right now, are going to be changed based upon input from the Department of Ed and the probability of how much we're going to collect based upon their input. So what you're seeing right here is just an estimate.
But your experience tells you that you usually fall similar to where these numbers are, or have we actually seen the extremes of the roulette wheel as you?
I think we fall around where these numbers are. Of course, building aid, the only wild cards are catastrophic aid and Medicaid funding. And Medicaid funding, we've usually collected more than that, and catastrophic aid, we've usually collected more than that. But then again, we've been threatened with, right up until the last moment, collecting less than it. And when we get more, it's kind of a surprise. So it's kind of, you're in a position where, how optimistic do you want to be with other people's money?
All right, so how much money, bottom line, are we talking then, fluctuation?
Fluctuation, $500,000, either or.
Okay, all right. What I don't want the voters that came out to participate tonight, which I commend all of them for coming out, to think that I'm not as supportive of the capital items that you want. I just think the process of getting there is where we disagree. I firmly believe in maintaining our capital assets. There's no reason not to be doing that. So I wanted to state that. But this year, knowing what we've been seeing for surpluses, I see absolutely no reason why we should be concerned whether this article passes or fails. There is enough money. It is here. You will collect enough. You can do everything you want because of the way you've crafted this budget. By putting it all in, you have the possibility and the probability of 100% to do everything that you've outlined in your budget. Do you care to correct me?
The only thing is, I cannot spend that surplus. So if the budget gets voted down, I can only expend up to the amount of the appropriation that's approved. That surplus is not available for me.
Fair.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Chris?
Chris Christensen, 27 Great Stone Drive. I'm speaking or thinking as a trustee of trust funds, and one of the things that comes out of this budget that I look at, you need a new roof, you need a new roof. There's no avoiding that. Same thing with the other things that are on there for capital improvements. But I'm also looking at it and saying, relative to other bodies, the use of capital reserve funds for what I'm going to call surprise expenditures is very low in the school district. We see other places, other towns, Merrimack is obviously an example, but I won't go into those, where something happens to a fire truck, an accident or a breakdown, whatever, and you have to buy a new truck for $750,000. And yes, you get some insurance reimbursement, but it's based on the value of a 15-year-old truck, and you have to buy a brand new one. Same thing with the roof. It depreciates, but we're not saving to replace that roof in an amount necessary to replace it. We save small amounts, but I think for future years, instead of having spikes and dips in the budget, which means spikes and dips in my tax bill, I'd rather see a heavier use of capital reserve funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody, I'm going to go to you and then to Chris.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jody Valancourt, 35 Greenleaf Street. I might be stealing your thunder, Chairman Ortega. Capital reserve funds are absolutely a wonderful tool, and having the pleasure of sitting on the town council now, I see when they are properly utilized how great a tool they can be. I don't believe that the school district has the luxury of using those at this current time. I remember Roy Swanger came up with the acreage of roofing.
11.
How many?
11 acres.
11 acres of roofing that a lot of it has all gone in need of replacement or repair all around the same time. So I do believe that once that cycle of roof replacement and repairs are completed, that I think that the school district administration has been put on notice by previous school boards as well as this one. And I do still watch your meetings and your budget discussions, so I try to stay up on what's going on. I do believe that's something that will be considered very strongly in the future. But right now, they'd be putting money into a capital reserve fund and taking it out the very next year, because every year there's a substantial project that needs to be completed. And while, I appreciate and I always respect Mr. Tenhave's opinion greatly, by voting no on this budget, operating budget warrant article, there is a very real risk that there will not be the money for this track replacement. So I don't want people to think that it's in the bag, that if you vote no and the default budget is implemented, that the school district has access to money from somewhere that they can make this track happen. If I believed that, then I would be up here stating that I'm going to be voting no on this operating budget as well, because I know the tax implications that it brings to my pocketbook as well. So I just want people to understand that you are taking a risk with the track, because I believe that the roof would probably take precedent over the track, and I think that would be a huge disservice, if not criminal, to have a track that we cannot use next year for those students at the middle school and the high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on Article 7? Seeing none, Article 7 will move forward. You don't get anything yet. To the ballot as printed, and I'm going to take some executive privilege here, because I want to. A number of people have asked me over the years if I have reached out to the high school to see if students are interested in this process. I want to commend all the ladies and gentlemen who are here today, whether you could speak or you couldn't speak, for taking an interest in the process and being an active participant. I also want to recognize Riley Clark, who stepped up along with another student who will be here in his position on Thursday night, and has also helped me at the primary and will continue to do so. We do reach out to the high school. There are students who step up and say, I want to be part of this and I want to do it, and I will tell you that they are probably my best workers. So thank you, Riley. I want to recognize Chris first. Okay.
Thank you. Before we adjourn, I was remiss at the beginning of the meeting. I intended to start with a moment of silence If you'll indulge me, I think it's actually
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
Before we adjourn as well. On February 27th, police officer Ashley Gwyndon was killed in the line of duty in her first day on the job in Prince William County, Virginia. She was 28 years old. Officer Gwyndon was a Merrimack High School graduate, class of 2005. We're told by her principal, Ken Johnson, that Ashley's yearbook quote reads, "It is better to live for something than to die for nothing." Before becoming a police officer, Officer Ashley Gwyndon participated in junior ROTC at Merrimack High, served 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserves, and was a volunteer in an array of community service organizations. Ashley was laid to rest yesterday in Springfield, Mass. Merrimack High School's motto is believe, go forward, and inspire. Officer Gwyndon lived and died her much too short life in the service of others and is an inspiration to us all. In memory of Officer Ashley Gwyndon, in sympathy for her family and friends, and with respect for her brothers and sisters in blue, let's observe a moment of silence. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you. Yet one more instance of our Merrimack High School students stepping up and doing what needs to be done. Thank you. Shannon?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. As the Vice Chair, I don't get to introduce the board, so I didn't get to kind of drop the news. But as you may have noticed, if you saw any sample ballots coming out or sample listing, that you will not see Chris Ortega on the ballot this year. This is his last deliberative session for the school district. And I want to take a time, as someone who served with you for the last 6 years, we came on the board together. You're going out without me. But that being said, thank you so much for the time you served and all the work that you did and all the work we did together. So it's been a great ride. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank your wife, Kathleen, your 4 daughters, Caitlin, Megan, Kimberly, because she's Kimberly to us, Kim to you guys, and Erin as well, who really took time away. You took time away to spend it with us and to do it for the children of the district and the community. So I want to take a moment to thank you for all of your service, and we will miss you.
Thank you. Now stand.
Madam Moderator, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. We are currently adjourned.